Hello and welcome to the video. This is going to be the fourth part of my 2024 Arnold Strongman Classic predictions, where we're going to be going over the athlete who I predict is going to come into fifth place in this competition. So let's just go ahead and get started by revealing some of the athlete's previous performances and the points that I predict they're going to be scoring here. So as we can see, this is an athlete with a pretty significant raw deadlift of 430 kilograms. Previous experience on the timber carry, scoring almost 8 meters here, almost being capable of finishing the timber carry. The exact same event actually that's going to be contested here at the Arnold. They have previous experience on similar stone carry type events, also being one of the few men in history to actually lift the Denny stones, which again are being contested here in this competition. They have an axle clean and press PR of 190 kilograms. And depending on who you ask, they are the king of the stones. And in my opinion, they are the greatest Atlas stone lifter in all of history. So who else could that be other than, of course, Tom Stoltman? So getting right into it here, starting off with the deadlift. We see that Tom comes away here with 7 points in this deadlift, according to my predictions, meaning he scores a top 5 finish on the deadlift. So I do believe that Tom is definitely capable of perhaps anywhere from third to fifth place here. But I do think that there are two athletes that seem a bit more consistent with the deadlift and have a higher chance of beating him here than he does of beating them. So again, he does have a raw personal best on the deadlift of 430 kilograms. So I do expect him to be hitting something in that range, maybe a little bit higher, as that PR was actually set 9 years ago. And for whatever reason, he hasn't really competed in many max deadlift events over the years. But for whatever reason, that hasn't been beaten yet. But I do believe that he's definitely made some progress on his deadlift and do expect something at least close to 430 kilograms, most likely a little bit higher than that in his current training. He is actually, it seems that he's a little bit more focused on the deadlift at Britain's Strongest Man, which is a 400 kilogram deadlift. However, he is allowed to use a suit in that competition, and I believe he will be using a suit in that competition. And he has some training videos where he's hit 400 kilograms for 4 reps. But you can't really compare that to a raw deadlift. So it's hard to say where exactly his raw deadlift is right now. But I do think that a fifth place finish, scoring 7 points, is a pretty realistic outcome here for Tom Stoltman. Potentially a little bit higher than that, depending on how other athletes come and the shape that they are in. But again, as I mentioned, I do think that there are a couple of athletes here that are more likely to beat Tom at this deadlift than he is of beating them. So moving on to the frame carry, I do have Tom coming in with 4 points here on this frame carry. The reason for this is that he has yet to be able to finish this timber carry. And in this particular competition, I do believe there are a decent handful, maybe 6 or 7 athletes that actually have finished the timber carry before. And if you just look at the previous results, you would expect them to sort of come on top of Tom here. So 4 points here, that would be, I believe, an 8th place scoring here. If you want to just simply compare him to some of the other athletes here that have been revealed, we see that we have Novikov, Evan, and Maxime beating him out here. And I do think that they will beat him out here again. Novikov has scored almost 2 meters more distance than he has here. Evan, I just think that he's going to have a stronger grip than Tom in this, and same goes for Maxime Boudreau. These are just some athletes that, have beaten him in this event before, aside from Evan, but Evan is more so a prediction that he's just going to do very well here. But essentially, that's why I think Tom is going to come away here with 4 points. He could, of course, surprise everybody. His grip does seem to be improving, year on year. But that remains to be seen, of course. So I couldn't justifiably put him a little bit. I couldn't justifiably score him higher than that. But you never know what might happen there. Something that I do think is worth mentioning is that his best performance in the timber carry was 7.98 meters in 2022, that which was his first time on the implement. However, he did actually compete on the implement in the following year, 2023, and he actually scored less distance than that. Now, whether that shows a downward trend in his performance here remains to be seen. I do think that he's definitely capable of beating his previous best here. Um, but I do think that this is an event where out of all the events, he is definitely at risk of losing points. So moving forward to the Denny Stones, I have him here with 6 points, which I believe is let me see, that would be I believe a sixth place position here. Now, Tom is one of the few athletes here that has actually had their gotten their hands on the Denny Stones and been able to lift it. And in the video where he's lifting it, he actually does seem pretty comfortable with them. He's actually doing a little whirl around to the crowd and all that. So he did actually seem pretty comfortable lifting them. So he might place a little bit higher than I have him here. But the athletes that I have above him, such as Evan Singleton and some others that haven't have yet to be revealed, I do think that they just have a stronger grip than him, and some even have a little bit more experience in the Denny Stones than him. So, sixth place is sort of the highest position that I can really justify in placing. Um, Let me see here. We have five, four, three, two, one. So we actually have all of the athletes here that I think are going to place lower than him, such as, let's see, Bobby Thompson, Alexei Novikov, Maxime, Oscar, and Thomas. I do think that Tom actually, you can argue that he has a better grip than Bobby and Novikov when it comes to at least side handled carries. It's like a frame or a farmer's maybe. And then Maxime, again, as I mentioned in the previous video, I do think that it's going to come down to experience for him, whereas Tom has actually been able to lift the Denny Stone. So I do think that he can reliably pick up some points on some of these other athletes. But I do think that if other athletes perform how they are expected, uh, they're definitely capable of beating Tom here. Again, being another event that he's going to be looking out to do some damage control on. So I do have him here coming in with 6 points. So moving on to the Apollon's wheels. As you can see, this is, at least according to my predictions, Tom's best event here, scoring 9 points, which would calculate to a third place in this event. However, I do actually have him tied with a couple other athletes here for a second place tied position. I do think that he is going to be one of the few athletes that's capable of hitting 3 reps on this. And while we're speaking on the amount of reps, I do actually think that Tom, he's sort of known to be pretty good on the axle, having a very large frame. He's pretty efficient at cleaning the axle. And as we saw last year at the Rogue Invitational 2023, it was a log press, not an axle, but he did show a pretty crazy amount of endurance on overhead events. He hit a 162 kilogram log for 10 reps, which is it is 20 kilograms lighter. So, I'm not expecting him to hit 10 reps, of course, with this axle, but it does show that he definitely has that endurance on his overhead pressing ability. So that combined with his pretty efficient clean on the axle, I do think that he definitely has the tools for 4 reps, maybe even 5. Who knows? Who knows what he can do? But just playing it safe, I have him here with 3 reps and scoring 9 points. As I mentioned before, he has a axle clean and press personal best of 190 kilograms. So he's definitely capable of moving this weight. You also take into account his recent training. It's been looking pretty good. So again, I think Tom Stoltman is going to be one of the better placing athletes on this specific event. So moving on to the stone medley. Now, what do I have here as his quote unquote best performances? I have that he's the king of the stones. So in the past, I'd say 4 years, he's sort of been untouchable on the specifically Atlas stones, except for maybe 1 or 2 mishaps here and there. Uh, so I do think that his stone ability is obviously going to transfer over quite well to the stone medley. So again, as a recap, the stone medley is going to be a three-part medley where you have to press a 300-pound stone, a load a 360, maybe 370-pound stone onto a platform, and then finally shoulder about 190 kilogram stone up to your shoulder. Now, I do think that Tom 100% has the tools to breeze through those first two stones. I do think he has very good pressing power to press the stone, and I do think that, of course, he's gonna have no issue loading that natural stone onto the platform. Now, when it comes to the Oudhaugen Tombstone stone that they're gonna be shouldering up to their shoulder, just repeating words now. But anyways, you know, in 2022 when he was performing this event, there was a lot of talk about how he might do. A lot of hype even saying that he could beat Mateus's record on this, but he actually ended up zeroing this event, I believe. Um, and I do think that that's more so a thing of experience with the stone, not necessarily a strength issue. So the reason, again, if you look closely here, I have him with 6 points, is because it is uncertain if he's going to be able to shoulder the stone this time. Now, I do think he's going to breeze through the first two stones, putting in a pretty decent time there. So scoring some safe points there when compared to other athletes that might not be able to shoulder that stone. But if he is unable to shoulder the final stone, I do think he's going to be losing out on some points here, scoring only 6 points. Now, again, with that being said, uh, I do see a bit more emphasis in his training when it comes to natural stones. He did go out, I believe, to wherever Brett Nickel is, who does have a lot of natural stones, and he was shouldering some of them. I believe he shouldered a 172 kilogram stone up to his shoulder. It looked pretty good from what I saw. So it could definitely be that he's making some good progress on this event. And if he is able to shoulder that stone, he might be able to do it faster than anybody else. And he might end up scoring maybe 4 or 5, well, maybe not 5 more points than that. Maybe 3 or 4 more points than I have allocated to him here. So essentially that leaves him off with 32 points, which as you can see is very close to Evan Singleton. So I do think that looking at this generally, I do think that Evan and Tom are really going to be competing here for that fifth place position. As I mentioned before, the top four of this competition, I do think is going to be extremely difficult to crack. I think the top four athletes in this competition um, are not only very well suited to these events, but also just extremely talented athletes um, whose training is just looking fantastic at the moment. So with that being said, I do think that Tom is actually, I think Tom is the only athlete in this entire lineup, aside from the top four, if you're looking at the uh, from 5th to 11th, I do think that Tom is the only athlete that has a realistic chance of breaking into that top four. If he just comes in a shape that we have never seen him in before. But just looking at previous results in his training, this is what I am predicting for him. 32 points and a fifth place position here. So essentially, it's going to be the gist of it for this video. I think for the next video, I might just end up doing one video for the entire top four, just having a sort of overall discussion on what I think is going to be going on there, because I do think that that's going to be a very, very significant and entertaining battle for those top four positions. And I honestly think that anybody in that top four can end up winning this competition. But with that being said, that's essentially all of it for this video. And thank you very much for watching.